Fresh Jacob, where I talk about things because you make me. And since it's all o'clock in the morning, let's jump right into it. Today's question comes from Sonic Vortex, and it reads, with the digital age being what it is, what do you think about the physical medium of video gaming? Movies, shows, books even. Do you think there is value in this medium and think it should continue to be supported, or should we give in and go full digital streaming everything? Interesting question. Although I do want to give some clarification to this question. Go full digital streaming everything. There is a difference between digital and streaming. Digital would be if you were to download something onto your hard drive and then play it off of said hard drive. Whereas streaming is you're just playing it, kind of like PlayStation Now, it's garbage. You're just using data to constantly stream that, and when you're done, there's no trace of it on your console. That, I think, is because it takes a lot of bandwidth to do, and as some of you saw when we were trying to use the PS Now stuff, there's input lag, there's glitches, there's bugs. I don't think that we're quite ready for that yet. But to answer your question about physical versus digital, you ask about video games, movies, shows, and books even. I'm going to set the rest of that stuff off to the side, and I'm just going to think about that in my own time when I cry myself to sleep at night. But sticking just with video games, I think it's a really, really good question, and I think that it is a very common question. It gets talked about a lot. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on it, and I'm excited to share mine with you. First of all, both are fine. That's the short answer. Both are fine. Whatever works for you. But to give you exactly how I feel about it, I'm going to go over some pros and cons that I think fit. First of all, price, because that's something important to us as gamers whenever we're buying games, is price. When a game gets older, its price tends to drop. I mean, you can go into any Walmart or hell, even any GameStop, and they've got a bargain bin for games that are $5 or less. That's one of the benefits of physical games. As they age, their worth tends to go down. Now, not always, because guess what? Some games bazillion times more expensive than they were when they came out. There are so many games that are worth hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, even thousands for some very few rare ones, that were worth not even a fraction of that when they came out. So, I mean, sometimes I guess you can get lucky with collector's items like that, but that's a bit more on the uncommon side. Looking more in a broad sense, you do get deals if you can hold out on physical stuff. Now, that said, if anybody here has used Steam or the Epic Game Store or GOG, whatever, I can't remember what that stands for, Galaxy of Gamers or something like that, they put shit on sale all the time. All the time. Game comes out, literally 3 weeks later, boom, it's 10% off. It's insane the amount of sales that go on these digital storefronts. So that kind of balances that out. So if I had to pick something between like physical versus digital when price goes, it honestly works out about the same. You know, you wait a while, stuff's going to go on sale on digital storefronts, and you've got bargain bin stuff, but that's actually a lot more balanced than I thought it was when I first started this train of thought, so that's kind of interesting for me. Another one that I think is very important to note is something that Microsoft and Sony bitched about at each other for a while back when the PS4 and the Xbox One first came out, is sharing games. If you have a digital game downloaded to your console, you can't really share it as easy. You can. There are ways to do it. They're not as easy. They're not as necessarily convenient. They're not necessarily as safe either, but you know, you can be like, here, log into my account and play this game, or here's like a family sharing thing, which only do that with people you trust. But if you've got a physical game, you just hand it to them. And I know Sony made a commercial about that. I can't remember. It's been a while, but it was back when the PS4 was coming out. They were just, oh man, they were shitting all over Microsoft. It was hilarious. They just like, how to share your games on PS4, and it just showed a dude handing the game to another dude. And it was like, that was the whole commercial, just because for Microsoft it was going to be complicated because it was going to be like all online all the time stuff. That is a topic for another day, is the Xbox One versus PS4. But again, you can share both physical and digital games, but it is easier, in my opinion, to share physical games so long as distance is not an issue. If distance is an issue, forget sharing physical games. Digital's the only way to go, which does actually give some bonus points to digital. So once again, unexpected when I started this train of thought, they kind of balance each other out again, which again is not what I expected. But hey, I'm enjoying this so far. Along with the same vein of sharing games is selling them. You can't sell a digital game. Full stop. You can't do it. You could sell an account, I guess, that has a bunch of games on it, but that is a massive legal gray area as well, because you don't actually own the games. You only own the license to download and play. That's a whole mess, and I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not even going to get into that can of worms. But if you've got a physical game and you want to sell it, sell it. That's it. That's simple. For like reselling, physical's got to be the winner there for me. Now, here's the flip of that, availability for stuff. If you have games that only had so many copies printed, or you have a game that now is really, really hard to find, or it costs like $300 and it's a PS2 game or something like that, there is such an easy way to get around that when it comes to digital, and that's with your console storefronts. You know, you go on the Switch eShop, or you go on the Xbox Marketplace, or you go on the PlayStation Network store, and games that would cost you $75 to $100 you can download for $10. You can't beat that. Digital fixes the availability problem because you're never going to run out. You have the thing stored on a server and people can just download from it. It's that easy. Now, some companies like to be like, oh, we're going to release digital, but we're only going to release so much of it. Nintendo. What you say? Now, speaking of digital storefronts, there's another issue there that physical does win a bit in, and that is that sometimes games can be delisted. Now, 99.9% of the time, a game's not going to be delisted. It may have its online services discontinued, so like you can't play online multiplayer anymore with those, especially on console. You don't really get that as much with PC, but on console it's a thing. But 99.9% of the time, you can still download the game. There's no problem with that. You just can't play it online. That's okay. But there's one example I can think of off the top of my head that just shits all over that, and that's actually PT, which was just a demo for Silent Hills, which is a now canceled Silent Hill game. If you had it, you had it. And then they just completely delisted it to the point where even if you had previously downloaded it, if you deleted it off your console, you couldn't get it back. You could not re-download it at all. It was gone forever because Konami sucks. You don't see that a lot. That is excruciatingly rare, but that is something that never happens with physical stuff. Okay, Konami can't break down your door and take your game. Well, they could try, but they would go to prison, and it would be really funny, and they would deserve it because they're assholes. But when it's physical, it's yours. You don't have to worry about a storefront issue happening or a game getting pulled because of licensing issues, which I think that's happened before. I want to say that happened with one of like the Marvel vs. Capcom games, although I could be completely wrong on that. Welcome to die. I think one of the soundtrack things for Alan Wake was an issue at one point. But again, I really can't remember. Now, that said, there is a flip to that. A big flip to that. And that is, with physical, your discs can get lost. Your discs can get damaged, scratched up, bent, broken. A cat could chew on it. You could accidentally step on it. You could just simply lose the disc. Any number of things can happen to the actual physical properties and cause the game to just no longer work, and then you're fine. Another thing that is kind of important to me, you can lose a lot of stuff when you're moving, like from one house to another. I've had that happen. I've lost games that way before. It's just, that's inevitability whenever you move, and it sucks. But if you have digital, you just take your consoles. That's it. You're done. All the shit you downloaded is still downloaded on the console, or if you need to re-download it for some reason, like you say, bought a new console, bought a new computer, whatever, sign in, download, boom, done. Well, I mean, you gotta sit there for a while because it's got to download, but, you know. Again, there's a bit of a balance there. Although, overall, I give it to digital just because there's so many different ways that your physical stuff could go wrong there. You know, damage, loss, that kind of stuff. Whereas the digital storefronts delisting your stuff is incredibly rare. Again, it does happen, but it is incredibly rare. Now, I would like to give one of my personal reasons that I love digital so much, and that is that if I'm playing on my Xbox One or my PS5 or my Switch or whatever, and I have been playing a particular game, let's say game A, and I want to switch to game B. If we're playing a physical game, I have to get up, I have to go to the console, I have to find the game, I have to take the old game out, put the new game in, put the old game back on the shelf. We're good to go. Digital, I arrow over to the other game and I hit A and I'm done. I don't have to get out of my seat. Do you have any idea how nice that is? To not have to get up and switch games. With digital, I could be super lazy instead of just regular lazy, and I love it! Kind of sad now that I think about it. A little earlier, I mentioned that with physical games, sometimes you get lucky and they hold insane value. That is literally impossible for digital stuff. Again, with like one exception, and that's PT. I'll get to that in a second. When you have physical games that are like cult classics, I use Earthbound as an example since we just recently played Earthbound. The collector's edition for Earthbound that came with like the strategy guide and the scratch and sniff cards or whatever, that thing's stupid expensive. I haven't looked up the price of it. Someone can look it up for me. Charles, you can look it up and put it on the screen if you want. You can get insane value out of physical games. Now, that again, that is super, super rare. That does not happen often, especially now. It's mostly old games that have that kind of stuff, or like really, really high-end collector's editions nowadays, which nowadays they don't even come with games. It's just a collector's edition without the game, but whatever. It's fine. I'm not angry or anything. But digital stuff, 99.999% of the time has no collector value whatsoever because it's digital. Exception to that might be something like PT. I know that once Konami delisted the shit out of that, it got to the point where people were selling their PS4s with PT on it for like double the cost of a PS4. And were making hundreds of dollars of profit just off of having a simple demo on their game. Actually, now that I think about it, I think, oh God, what was it? Flappy Bird on certain iPhones? Like it went off the store or something, and people were selling their iPhones with Flappy Bird on it because you couldn't re-download it, and people were buying them for like thousands of dollars or something. People are stupid, okay? I mean, whatever game you like, I'm happy for you, but that is stupid. That game was dumb. Really, really good question, Sonic. I enjoyed talking about that. It was a little more involved than I thought it was going to be. Overall, I would say I personally prefer digital, but I do think physical still has a place for now. Ask me again in 5 years, I may change my mind, but for now, I do think there is still a place for physical stuff, but digital is pretty much overall better, unless you're a collector. For a collector, physical is always going to be the way to go, and one company that knows that is Nintendo. Just look at all the amiibos. That tells you everything you need to know. I hope to see you guys next week for another episode of A Breath of Fresh Jacob, and until then, remember, guilty feet have got no rhythm. I'll see you guys next time. My brain's shutting off.